my name's Naina, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and today I'm going to be talking about the concept of Agni according to Ayurveda. So what is Agni? Agni, according to Ayurveda, is the fire principle of any transformative process that's happening within the body and also outside of ourselves. So according to Ayurveda, we have many Agnis situated in various parts of the body that require some sort of transformative or enzymatic process. So the main Agni that you commonly hear about in Ayurveda is something called the Jata Agni, which is the fire principle that's in the digestive system that allows you to assimilate and digest food properly. So the Jata Agni is responsible for transforming and digesting any substance that comes into the body into consciousness. So we only think that the food that we eat gets transformed into building material, but actually, according to Ayurveda, the whole process of nutrition and digestion is to turn matter into consciousness. And that is basically what we are as an expression of ourselves. So what this means is that if your Jata Agni is not very strong, or if it's imbalanced, it means that when you are taking in food, you will not be digesting it properly. Why is this so important? It's important to keep the Agni in balance, because when you're taking in food, you want to be digesting it properly so that you can get the full nutrition from the food. What this means is that you can be taking in a plethora of all these healthy foods and following the Ayurvedic diet and doing lots of things that you think are good for you in terms of what you're eating. But actually, if your Agni is not strong enough, you won't be able to digest that food. You will resultantly create something called ama, which is toxin. So really, what it all comes down to is the Agni in balance? And if not, how do we bring that back into balance? So the Agni can be affected in many ways. Here are the four main ones. The first one, and the most important one, is generally having a busy mind. If our thoughts are taking over, and if we're too busy with something to do with our head, too much thinking, too much stress, we're redirecting that fire, which should be here, up to the head. And therefore, when we take in food, the Agni is not strong enough to digest it properly. And then we can also get, alongside physical armor, mental armor too. The second thing to consider in terms of keeping the Agni in balance is the time of the day. Your Agni is strongest at midday, when the sun is at its highest. So this is the time when you want to have the largest meal of the day. Not everybody gets a hunger in the morning, and not everybody can have a hunger in the evening. So really what you've got to do is you've got to look out for when the Agni is the strongest. Third thing to think about is the season. So depending on the season, your Agni will have different strengths. So the way that the seasons are organised according to Ayurveda is that it acknowledges when the sun has a depleting effect or a giving effect on your body. And what this will do, it will strengthen and weaken the Agni accordingly. So it's very dependent on the season in which we are in, on the strength of the Agni. Fourth thing is your constitution. So depending on your Prakriti and your constitution, you will have a different strength of Agni. If you're a Vata constitution, your Agni will be something called Vishama, which means that it's up and down and irregular. If you have a Pitta constitution, it means that your Agni is quite strong and can normally be a little bit too hot. This is also called Tikshna Agni. And then lastly, if you're a Kapha constitution, your digestive fire will be slightly weaker, and they call this Manda Agni. So normally Kapha type constitutions will notice that it's quite difficult to get their hunger moving, and it can take a while for them to digest food. When we're thinking about Agni, it's important to consider this. When you are, for example, if you're choosing to take one of the malts from the Amrutam range, and you notice that your Agni is not very strong. So what you have to do is you really have to combine taking these malts with a regular eating pattern that's healthy for you. And then alongside that, when you take medicine, you will be able to absorb the medicine properly, and it will be able to be used more properly in the body. So let me put this into an example so it's a little bit more easier to understand. Say for example you have a cooking stove and it's one of the gas light ones, or a flame to cook food on, and you've got your pot and you place it onto the stove. If you have an irregular digestion, if you're Vata type and it's Vishama, it's a bit like trying to boil some water or cook some food in that pot. And with the stove fire, you're constantly turning it off and on, turn it off for a bit, come back to your seat, and then you go back and you turn it on. And what you will notice is the food is not going to cook properly. If you have a Tikshna Agni, it's a bit like turning the heat on full blast. And you've got the full flame on heat, the pan's heating up so strongly, as soon as you put the food into it, it burns and creates armor. So again, the food's not cooking properly. And then let's go to the Kapha type digestion. It's a bit like with the stove of putting on a very, very slow, low flame. So when the food enters, it takes a while to heat up and start boiling and start cooking. It can have a very cold, dense nature to it. So in this whole process, depending on the strength of your Agni, this is why you will be creating armor in the body. And Ayurveda has several ways in which you can balance this out. When we're talking about nutrition in Ayurveda, it's not just what you eat. And the principle and concept of Agni explains just this, that it's not just what you eat, it's the strength of your Agni, and it's everything around what you're eating too. How you're eating it, what time you're eating it, what season you're eating it, how you're combining certain foods, how you are cooking certain foods. So there's a huge complex of factors that go into keeping the Agni strong and enabling you to digest food properly. But don't get too perplexed by all of these factors you have to consider. Really, what it comes down to is that Agni is strong when you're in tune with yourself, when you are in tune with nature's rhythms. So bringing self-awareness into your day-to-day life with things like the daily routine, self-reflection, a bit of quiet time, some fresh air and breathing, you can come back to yourself and your body will teach you what it needs just from listening to that. And this ultimately keeps the Agni very strong. So in a wider sense, the principle of Agni represents transformation and our journey here. When we take in food, the Agni is responsible for transforming matter into consciousness. So what we eat and what we consume into our food, our body has the ability to transform it into consciousness. And it's not just physical food either. It's our emotional experiences, it's our day-to-day life, it's anything that we put into or we allow come into our being. Ultimately, it has to be transformed and it has to be assimilated, and there has to be some transformation and growth from that. So Agni represents this larger sense of what we're all doing here to propel you further along your journey. So what the Agni does is it keeps us evolving and it keeps us growing into the person that we need to be. When your Agni is strong, you have good decision-making skills, your body is relaxed, and you are learning and you are transforming information into knowledge. When your Agni is strong, you're able to handle life situations because you know that whatever comes to you, you're able to transform it into consciousness. So having a strong Agni, I personally feel, really gives you a good guard against any troubles that might come along in life or difficulties or challenges, because you know that whatever you're given, you will be able to transform it into something positive and transform it into consciousness. I hope that's been informative for you about the concept of Agni. It's a very vast topic, so it's difficult to go into it in a short video. However, if you are interested in learning more about how to strengthen your Agni, by delving into the knowledge of Ayurveda, book yourself a consultation, visit an Ayurvedic practitioner, visit a doctor who will guide you on how you can strengthen that. So thank you for watching, and look out for my next video on the Amrutam product of Chyawanprash.